What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another exciting episode here in the Arcane Archive. Today, we figured that we'd bless all of you with another rousing topic today, known as, what do we call it, Samuel?
The Cautionary Chronicles.
The Cautionary Chronicles. That's right. This is the lovely segment of our show where me and Sammy hop on everybody's favorite horrendous melting pot known as Reddit, search through a couple of great little r/RPG horror stories to read to you guys and give a little bit of our own personal thoughts, opinions, and maybe some advice on how we might handle or deal with these situations, or if we have personally or not. That being said, we'll go ahead and just jump right in here. Thank you for coming as we dive back down deep into the archive. So, starting us off for the first story of the day, we have right here a post by OP. DM wants to control my character, constantly tries to single me out. So, hey, r/RPG horror stories. My DM wants to control my character for no reason. Some context. We are currently nearing the end of our custom Rise of Tiamat campaign that we've been playing for a few years now. Hey, as you know, Sammy is also doing a bit of a custom Tiamat campaign. It is a lot of fun, but I have some gripes. Since the beginning, the DM has targeted me. All enemy attacks hit above my high AC every time. The other players actively encourage the DM's behavior. They say things like, "You're the tank!" Well, how come they never want to be the tank? 2, even though my character cannot swim because he has little strength and wears heavy armor, he has been trying to make me fall into water or force me to swim since level 3. He wants to drown my character. Now, I will say that's a little strange that, like, you're wearing heavy armor, but you have low strength. I mean, there's usually even like an actual strength requirement to wear
like probably
heavy armor.
13 at least.
Especially if they're like a paladin or something, I assume. But continue. We'll save that for later. Number 3, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but he keeps making my character's backstory tragic and traumatic. He uses concepts like blank, painful experiences, genetic alteration, unplanned,
These are fine to say. I don't think we have to
I
censor
mean,
these.
maybe
There's nothing
religious radicalism. Some of these can be slight triggering phrases, to be fair. But so essentially, child not great behavior or not great treatment, torture, genetic alteration, unplanned parenthood, and religious radicalism as story beats for my character. Why can't my character just be happy? Number 4, he has removed all of my character's friends from the game. Every time my character makes a connection with a PC or an NPC, they either turn into religious nutjobs worshiping him, the character retires from adventuring, or is just outright taken out permanently. The only real friend my character has left is an elf, and probably a femboy elf at that. A little weird, but okay. Number 5. 2 sessions ago, in a blatant attempt to destroy my character, he tricked me into fighting a dragon in a duel. Easy fight, though. Get good, dragon scrub. F you. Hey, all right. So I fair enough. I guess he's pretty strong enough to take on a dragon 1v1. All right. The latest and worst issue is that we're in the femboy elf's backstory arc now and are chasing down the god he apparently simps for, probably in an attempt to either retire or take out my character's last friend. He already cast Disintegrate on the elf, so that already proves his intentions. At the end of the session, he announced that I would have no control over my character at the beginning of the next session. No saving throws, no intervention of any sort. I built my character to withstand these things. He is a paladin with a minimum of +5 on all his saving throws. He has Eldritch Mind. He deserves better. And the worst part is that he makes memes about all of it. All the other PCs think that it's fine, and they all just laugh. No one comes to my defense. What do I do, Reddit? How do I get my DM to treat my character and I with respect? End post.
No, the answer's right there. You scroll down 2 inches.
Oh
What do I
yeah,
do? You
no.
stop playing with
So
them.
here's what we're gonna do. Considering that this OP here has actually requested a bit of advice and wisdom from Reddit of all places. Let's go ahead and we're gonna scroll through some of the comments, some of the advice that was presented, and then we'll give a bit of our own thoughts and perspectives on this. So right at the top, as Samuel just said, we have our I believe the most top rated comment. You stop playing with him in that group. They clearly don't respect you. They clearly don't care about you or your character, and you are just a punching bag for them. The response, this is the way. If a player is being an asshole, the GM can kick them. If the GM is an asshole, the players leave. Like, basically,
Yeah,
everyone seems to be absolutely 100% in support of this. As, quite frankly, yeah, that would be obviously the easiest, most probably best choice to do at this point. If none of the other players seem to have an issue, if your GM is literally constantly messing with you and picking fights with you, or not even picking fights with you, but actively screwing with you and your character, you should probably just leave. It's kind of as simple as that. In my experience, I have also had a similar thing to this 100%, where like I have been in a game where the GM was maybe not as actively as this player is claiming that their GM is treating their character, but 100% like all the time, like he would always take every opportunity to like restrict my character from doing something cool. I think I told you a little about this as well, Sam, at one point. Like I was playing like a gnome monk one time, and we're in a game where this one GM, like a lot of, and to be fair, a lot of the stuff in that game, like the GM was just being highly restrictive of a lot of things in the so-called name of like realism to a certain extent, or just again, to me, it just felt tedious. It just felt like he was being needlessly restrictive to an utterly tedious degree for no real reason other than to just exert control on the situation. Because it was
yeah,
just like, and even during, like with my character, he's a gnome monk and he's a very verbose, very, kind of interactive individual. And so it's like when he would interact with people, he would be very more charismatic, even though his charisma wasn't necessarily high. But the GM would often take to basically having all the people misclassify him as a halfling. Like he'd constantly refer to him as a halfling, and it became like a running gag that people apparently didn't know what gnomes were or something, just kept thinking he was a halfling all the time. Or there would be like, moments where they would like just for whatever reason be scared of him, or like startled by him and try to like kick him because he was small or something, or many kind of different things like that overall. And so I do have some personal experience with that, as well as some other games too, where it's like, yeah, that's not fun. It is not a fun experience when not even just like another player, like even when another player might be specifically screwing with or bullying or messing with your character or you out of character for no real reason. But it's
yeah,
especially even worse if like the GM is actively doing it, where they're just for some reason seem to have it out for you or your character, and they just do everything they can to continuously mess with and screw it. And I will say the absolute pinnacle of this whole scenario is the final thing of saying like the GM just literally announces that they have somehow lost complete autonomy or control over their character
yeah,
at the end of it. Like that right there, that is the biggest. That is like a literal sun. That's a red sun in the sky above you, currently careening down to impact the planet right there. Like
yeah.
that is you, audience, friends, acolytes. Let me tell you, in a game of D&D, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if they're the GM. I don't care if they're another player. I don't care whatever. No one has any ability to take away your control of your character unless it's like specifically a spell or magical effect that requires you to make a saving throw. And even in those instances, those effects that can like dominate your character, they will only and should only last for a very short period of time. That is the point. There are spells that do allow that to happen. Dominate person, dominate monster. But those spells literally only last for like a minute. And I think
Yeah.
maybe if you upcast them, the max is what, like an hour, maybe more?
At like super high level, but the reality is you don't take player autonomy away. And even if you quote unquote dominate someone, you should still let them play their character, just
Well,
doing what the
again,
spell does.
unless
Like,
you like actively take control of them, which is like
yeah,
that's fine. But again, it's only temporary. You can't just say you can't control your character anymore.
yeah,
That's not how that works.
no, I prefer the way that Matt Mercer does it. Whenever he dominated somebody, they always still got to do their own thing, but it
Yeah,
was like, all right, now you have to play like this spell
like
would tell you to.
yeah,
And I thought they
or
always did that well because it was one of those things where it's like, I want you to attack your friends. And he's like, well, that's what I would do. And
yeah.
like they play it out like it was
How would
supposed to
you
happen.
attack your friends like they were enemies? If you saw them
Yeah.
as enemies, how
So
would you
do
fight
it.
them?
What would you do? Because you know about them, you know what they're good at, what they're bad at. So what would
Yeah,
you do? And I like that more because again,
I
yes, you're
agree.
changing the way things are working, but you're not taking away player autonomy.
Well, you're still giving
Big,
them that control.
yeah,
Yes.
it's big no no. Me and my friend, whenever we talk about stuff, anytime we've had a problem with our current campaign, it's always down to like, but do I have autonomy? Am I being forced to do this, or do I still have a choice? And like that's where we draw the line of like, all right, this really needs to stop. I did find it funny. One of the comments was, "I think all of you should give up D&D until you're not in high school anymore." This is 100% giving me like this person is a child,
I
kind of
mean, I mean,
like just the way that the way that they're talking about like the game itself. It seems very strange and childish to me to
I
just do these
mean,
kinds of things. But the whole like targeting only one person, arguing about the tank. There is no tank in D&D
I
in
mean,
the
there
traditional sense.
are in the
But
sense
like
of
not
like barbarian.
it's not a game like
He
that.
is technically a tank, but no, you're
Sure.
right. It's not quite the same exact thing as like video
No, it's
games
not
and
a
like
video game.
he is though the tank in the sense of obviously yeah he has
He can
high
tank damage.
AC. Well, that's also one of his biggest points too, being right. It's like hey, he apparently has high AC, but apparently enemy attacks always hit him all the time.
Yeah.
And so that is fair because again, he could play the role of tank, but the role of the tank isn't necessarily just to always soak up damage, especially unless you are the barbarian. That's the barbarian's role. As a paladin, their role is like they can take damage because they can also heal, they can offset it, but it's also because their AC is normally supposed to be pretty high, which can also mitigate the chances of them even taking that damage anyway. Whereas
Yeah.
in this situation, if the GM is actively just ignoring that aspect of his character, that sucks. Like it's
a
like
little weird.
just
It's part of me is
statistically
like
speaking, yeah. I mean, well, they're definitely if obviously it's a Reddit post, so you obviously have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, of course, obviously. But if it is to be believed, and I will say I'm at liberty to, or I'm liable to believe him because I have also had a similar experience, very much like this, a couple of times, and so things like this can happen in my experience. That being the case, it's like, yeah, that does suck. Where it's just like evidently the GM seems to have something towards the player. Now, the other question being is we don't have the GM or any of the other players' sides on this. What exactly maybe has the player done to maybe potentially deserve this kind of treatment? You know, that's also another question to potentially ask. Maybe the player is not being entirely forthcoming about their behavior. Because as I mean, if you look at the game,
yeah, because
he hasn't actually stated any of his behavior, right? How his character acts, what his character does. So we don't know for certain whether or not this is necessarily justified, though, quite frankly, in my opinion, I still feel like even if the player might be doing some shitty shenanigans, this isn't necessarily how you should be handling it
it
as a G.
doesn't. I don't know. From what it sounds like, it just sounds like the dude's just trying to have fun. I mean, he describes the character as happy-go-lucky, and the
Yeah,
fact that he wanted the
I agree.
backstory to not be weird and
Or
tragic. And
tragic or crazy or
the other
traumatic.
thing that like this just seems very like one very targeted specifically this person,
Oh, clearly,
which
yeah.
is unfortunate because it seems like the other players are also in on it, which means that this person definitely needs to find a different table because it seems like no one at that table is treating you correctly.
Well, that's the biggest thing. If you can't even get any like support from any of the other players, it's like
Yeah.
You really
He
only
said
have one recourse at this point, my
he
man.
he said further down in a response to somebody that he thinks that they enjoy watching him and his character suffer, and that
Yeah.
he did talk to the DM before, and they changed for a while, and then it just went right back to it again. It really sounds like this person just needs to leave in this table. Either they're doing this on purpose to mess with him or try to get him to leave. Which is, I mean, I've seen that done before as well. But
Yeah, where
the
they troll a person until they force them to leave instead of just actively asking them or whatever. Which again,
yeah,
that is still weird though too. It's like, okay, what is the reason for why they're doing what they're doing? Like I would be very interested to like sit in on a session and like watch to see like how does the player, the OP themselves conduct themselves in a session and be like, okay, is any of this behavior by the GM and the other players, reasonable or called for in any way, shape, or form? Or is it, as the OP has presented, just a complete and utter douchebag festival going on here?
yeah. I'm also weirded out by the DM making your backstory a certain way. You're the one that's supposed to write your backstory, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So I don't really
Well,
get
that's what I'm
that. And
saying.
if your
Even the
DM is
fact,
changing, like the moment someone tries to change my backstory is the moment I'm like, that's not what we
that's
discussed.
no.
So we're
Again,
not doing that.
they have no power to control your character's period. Like in that
Origin
way.
or
Like
anything or yeah,
you're the
I
one
mean
who decides. You made the character. Now you obviously you have to work with your GM to like be like, hey, does this backstory work for your setting, for your game? Is this conducive? Like you got to work together. But just because you work together, that still goes both ways. The GM can't
yeah.
then just retroactively change shit after the fact.
Yeah.
Um,
This is just an unfortunate, like you need to leave
it
and
is.
find a
It
different
is.
group.
The only real recourse here that I can really see is like, because that's what I did. Like, you got to dip out, especially again, if the rest of the party, if the rest of the players are having perfectly fun time, if they don't see any problem or any issue, then this might just unfortunately be a case of, well, this table, this group just ain't for you. They like to play a certain way. It's just not for you, and you might just have to disconnect and detach yourself and find something better, my man.
Yeah,
I'm
I think so.
sorry. I am sorry, OP, if you ever see this, that you had to go through all of this stuff, because that I've been there, and it's not a fun time. It's not
No.
fun. But with that, let's move on to the next rousing tale for the afternoon. Sammy, you want to take it away here?
Yeah. This one is called Sometimes Friends Can't Game Together.
This is gonna be a heavy
This is
one
a
here.
well, not
Not
super
like
heavy,
not
but
heavy in the sense of emotion, but heavy in
no,
the sense of like
it's
this can be a rather common occurrence from what
yeah.
I have heard, and it's unfortunate, but it's an important lesson I think to know. So
And
take it
it's
away.
even happened to me, and I don't find groups online. So I've been a part of a gaming group for about 6 or 7 years, where four of us are still part of the main group, while 3 or 4 others have come and gone, or come and stayed for this year's long campaign. 3 of the 4 core players have been friends for a long time, and the fourth is a player's partner. The problem player is a great person out of game one-on-one. They're sweet and often charming, but once they're around more than one person, they have to be the funniest, the nerdiest, the most pop cultured. They'll crack jokes about they'll crack jokes taking the shotgun approach, trying to wax hilarious at every turn, out of character, which is a huge problem. So this person's a distraction right off the bat. And when nobody wants to engage because we're all in character, they get butthurt and pout, and then repeat what they've just said through 2 or 3 or 4 times before getting all huffy and asking, "Nobody got that, really?" So this person is a bad class clown. It looks like it sounds like they never.
Yeah.
It sounds like they
Well,
never grew up.
it's clear. I think they're
Um,
suffering from a particular case of main character syndrome, where
well,
they're
and
like,
rampant insecurity. If you have to be this, but it sounds like you have a fucking
well,
problem
like
with yourself.
well, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's even kind of the core of main character syndrome in a nutshell, right? Where you just you feel so insecure, or you feel like you need to get the validation and the attention on
Yeah,
yourself because you don't feel comfortable and confident enough in yourself
yeah.
just normally to be able to share the limelight with
Oh
everybody.
yeah. When it comes to their turn, problem player is never ready and takes forever to look up their character sheet because they haven't been listening to the GM, and then they have to ask every turn what's going on. They talk out of character constantly and don't stop even when someone says, I'm trying to listen to the GM. They just turn to the next person and continue chatter. For the longest time, we've been able to ignore it or let it go because we're all too old for this crap, or in our 30s. But then problem players started lashing out at me out of character at the table. Nothing major, but annoying AF. They'd laugh when my character got hit with big damage, but would pout when their character got hit at all. Or they'd talk over me or accuse me of being antagonistic when I would ask them to explain something. Don't even get me started about how weird they are in the GM's Discord. It's like they feel comfortable enough being friends out of game to dump on me in game. Now, this is a huge.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a
this
big
whole
one.
thing is
That's a
this whole
big one
thing
right
is
there.
this whole thing is a red flag. The constant out of character chatter drives me fucking insane. We've had, we all have those nights where a session gets a little giggly,
It's
where
okay. It's
where it's like there's something that happens at the beginning and you just can't really let it go, and like everybody keeps bringing something back up or chatting a little bit, and that's fine when it's like once. If it's all the time, dude, I would lose my mind. We've had that problem before in my games, and I literally, and I feel bad for this. I literally told them to shut your fucking mouth. I'm like, please shut the fuck up, please. I'm like, they're trying to explain the thing. I'm trying to fucking listen. All I can hear is your stupid voice. Shut up. Like, don't do that. That is not what you should do. I've been playing with these people for like 6 years.
Yeah,
which is
that's
the only reason.
That's definitely not the best way to address it. But
that's my own Cautionary Chronicles.
I have been there myself as well. Like it can be an incredibly frustrating experience, because again, I told like my first ever campaign I was a part of, that was one of the biggest issues, was like we had too many people, for one, ended up all joining up. It was too many. But the problem too being is that most of those people also weren't necessarily there to really play the game. They kept, again, like cross talking and talking.
They just want to hang out with their buds.
Yeah, and it's like, that's okay. We get that. We understand that. We love that. The thing being, though, is that, again, you can do that a different time. The thing being is that we all collectively agreed to be committed to do this activity at this time today, because it's not an activity you can just kind of do willy-nilly, impromptu, whatever. It's something you usually have to plan to do, and so therefore it takes time, effort, and work to set it up, and so therefore it deserves the respect of being engaged, of being involved and present. Because again, especially the issue being is if you're talking to other people, like while your GM, like saying here, is describing things, or another player is like actively trying to role play with somebody else, or the GM, that is also being very disrespectful and inconsiderate of those people. Because, like, again, okay, fine, maybe if your character isn't currently involved in the scene, you're somewhere else, you wouldn't know what's happening anyway. That's fine, whatever. But you to start then actively talking to somebody else is, again, disrespectful of the fact that it's their moment and scene to enact. Like, again, you don't necessarily have to pay super close attention to what's going on, because you could also say it in the time of like, oh, well, that'd be metagaming if my character necessarily knew about that. So it's like, okay,
you should
fine,
pay attention.
Whatever. It would still be best if you paid attention, but you know what? Fine, whatever.
It's about respect. If you're gonna,
at the very least, don't again start talking over or interrupting or again disrupting the game and other people's times and experiences of it. They are engaged. They're doing this right now. Don't start shitting on that because you're a little bored or something, like because you're not currently actively engaging. Do something else. Look at your spells. Be like, okay, you know what spells should I have today? Look at like your character's back. Okay, you know what does my character want to do when it's my turn next? Start thinking and prepping for that.
You should have your turn planned out before,
especially
if combat runs long, you should already have stuff ready.
But something, or at least have a slight outline or an idea.
This person obviously has attention issues, but let's continue. It got so bad, I began to dread our games and eventually interacted with their characters as little as possible. That's terrible. Turns out most of the other players were in the same boat, so it sounds like it's just this person.
Yeah,
the last straw was when problem players screamed at me out of character for something that happened to their character entirely unrelated to anything I'd done. Their character got hit during combat for like 10 points of damage while mine had been knocked unconscious, and had been healed 2 or 3 times. The problem player whinged about it, and the DM pointed out that I'd taken 4 times the damage he had, uh, kind of ribbing the problem player for pouting about being hit. Problem player then proceeded to yell at me for always being superior.
That's telling. That is
The
very
GM,
telling.
yeah, the GM talked to the problem player about all this, and it's come up in our conversations as well. So it's not like we haven't tried to make things work. Maybe the problem player is insecure or immature or both, and in a gaming setting brings the worst out of them. Even though they say they really like gaming, it doesn't seem like they do. Or at least they don't like that TTRPGs are not Assassin's Creed or Final Fantasy. But between that and the GM getting so fed up with them being disengaged, the 3 of us have considered starting another game without the problem player. GM still wants to finish the original campaign. It's weird because I still consider problem player a friend, but will never be able to game with them again. TLDR, friend is a problem player who has single-handedly ruined an otherwise great game, but we want to keep the friendship. Now, look,
That's what I was saying. Is that's the heavy part right there,
like,
where it's
part of me says, like, you sure? The reality is that I've had this experience before of playing with somebody who I thought was my friend, and they, I used to hang out with them, all this stuff, and I sat them down at a table because they really wanted to play, and it was one of the worst experiences I had playing. They did not stay in a campaign with us, and I do not talk to them anymore. Now, the reason being is I think, especially in this sense, in this story, as we're reading it, they're doing stuff out of character. This isn't in the game. Your friend is acting like a child in front of you in your 30s, being a weirdo. Right? Is this the one that, yeah. So
Yep, the third.
And it also mentions on, like, they're weird on the Discord as well. So, like, for me personally, I don't know, this isn't someone it sounds like you'd want to continue to interact with. I understand that they're your friend, and if that's what you want to do, that you should do that. But one, you shouldn't continue the game.
I mean, like, I was gonna
Kick them out of the campaign,
Yeah.
and then just continue your campaign. You
If
don't
they
have
are-
to switch campaigns. Just remove them.
if they are
because
literally lessening the vast majority of the table's experience and fun,
then they're gone.
then they
It's
are
not-
unfortunately probably not compatible, and there should be some discussion for them to again either address and
Which they've already
adjust
said they did.
their behavior, which you guys have apparently already tried to do. And if they are not able or willing to make said adjustments, at that point, it might be time to just, all right, part ways. Because again, like looking down here, one of the comments here that I think also ties into this nicely is it almost seems like they care only about themselves and likes to be the center of attention with all the out of character stuff, and don't give a damn about things that don't personally involve them. Like the GM talking to the entire party. How is it that this person is a great person outside of the game again? And the OP, the original poster, comes back and they say, well, it's hard to explain, but hang out with them one-on-one, it's like they don't have to try so hard, and it can be a lot of fun. They have a great sense of humor, good conversation, and of course, we have a lot of shared interests. It's just that when there are more people around, they seem to feel like they have something to prove. And in a game setting, it's almost like they want to be the party leader, but the player themselves doesn't quite have the actual charisma to pull it off. And then they feel weird, and then they get weird about that later. And that is, in essence, like I have experienced someone personally, very close person like that before, where when we're just kind of by ourselves, like absolutely, they again seem to be a completely different person than who they seem to then turn into in public or in a bigger group. Where it's like I've definitely seen people have that thing, right? They have like their more private, like, maybe personal self, and then they have their host version almost, right? Or their performance self, the self that they bring out when they're in public with a wider group of people. I know. I am not a fan of it either. Like, and again,
no, just be you, dude.
I mean, just that. It's like, again, to be fair, we'll even like add the caveat of like everybody has that to a certain extent, sure.
Yeah,
Where it's
it's
like,
your
if
face
you're
you put
if you're
on.
just by, you put on your face, or like, because again, when you're in a more social or wider setting, the vibe is definitely different than when you're just kind of relaxing and chilling by yourself. If it's like a bigger group of people, you're like, all right, yeah. We're here to have fun. We're here to engage. We're here to have a good time. It's understandable, but there's a big difference between bringing out that aspect of yourself to be like, again, this is just me being a little bit more social and actively
Yeah.
engaging rather than being
Yeah.
just my more relaxed, calm self. I'm still the same person. I have the same thoughts. I have the same feelings. I still react the same like I would in public or in private. I will still treat you, everybody, the same way, regardless of whether I'm in private or public. Like I still feel
Yeah.
and treat you guys the same. There's a difference between that and, again, basically switching up almost your whole vibe and thing almost as a means, again, of accommodating or protecting yourself, or to, again, garner attention or to get a specific reaction out of people. You know, because you can tell as well, the red flag, as this guy is just, as this OP has shown, is, does their behavior, mannerisms, and personality seem to change starkly? Like they start doing all of this extra stuff, or they start acting a certain way. They start like not being nearly as like attentive or conscious, or like they almost, again, put on a persona, right? They're almost on autopilot and they put on a persona to start interacting with people. And that is never a fun, good
No.
feeling. Like it's not.
What's weird to me is, that's, I feel like that's a lot more common when you're with people you don't know. Certain people, and I'm guilty of this as well, you act a different way around people who you don't know. Whether it's because you
Sure.
don't want to scare anyone away or seem weird or whatever reason.
People
whether
manage
that's-
themselves a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, are you normally not a confident person? Well, you're probably afraid of making a bad impression, stuff like that. I get that.
Yeah, you can be shy,
To me, that makes perfect sense. And if that was the case, if they didn't know this person as well, like, and they were playing people they didn't know, I could understand that behavior a little bit more. But it sounds like these people know each other outside of the game fairly well. Like they've known each other for a long time.
For years, yeah, on top of that.
Which
So,
to
like,
me doesn't make sense that you still act that way. Underneath what you read, the comment from the OPs, there are friends and there are acquaintances. It sounds like maybe this player makes a better acquaintance because friends don't dump on each other, especially in front of other people when they get frustrated. Is this player the same age as the rest of you? Because that sure sounds like something that used to happen at our gaming table when we were in our early teens. This is huge. This is 100%, like, yeah, kind of. I don't know if this person, like, I get being like, oh, well, it's fun when it's just one-on-one. Okay. Yeah, but if I know that this person, every time there's more than one other person, becomes an unbearable person, I'm not, like, why are they there? Why'd you invite them? You knew that this was something that they struggled with. Why are they at the table? Like, it just seems like a very strange choice. I understand people having this need to include their friends in their hobbies, or including people, especially in something like D&D, which is very hot. It's very in right now, and a lot of people want to try it. But that's why you do
session
one
zeros.
session to see if people can even fit in a game like this.
One of the best ways
everyone
is to do like a one shot. You do a session 0 one shot to see how people vibe and jive, how they respond, and how they behave in this particular setting.
Look, I'll be the first one to say it. I have a lot of friends who like nerdy shit. They like video games. They do, they like fantasy, whatever it is. But I put them at a table and it's a shit show. And I know, like, it's not for everyone. Not everyone has the attention span. Not everyone really understands or enjoys like role play or the improv that is D&D. It was something that I struggled with when I first started playing because I liked the game aspect, but the role playing aspect made me very nervous.
It was new.
And I'm not an in front of people thing. Adam convincing me to do this at all was surprising to me. The reality is
persuasive. What can I say?
Like, I'll be honest, if there was someone standing here while I was recording, I would not be talking. I'm not good at being the center of attention.
He's not a great public speaker.
No, I fucking hate it. Thank God I never had to take it in high school. I would have failed that class. Everyone tells me, "Oh, you should have taken it because it's a good thing." No, I don't care. I don't want to. Bartending was my public speaking course.
Yeah, literally.
And that's the reality is because I worked in that industry and was forced to talk to people who I didn't want to talk to.
You came out of your shell a bit.
And it helped when it came to something like this. Not everybody's good at that. So
no.
I get it. I get the different aspects. Some people are going to they're going to fit in a game. Some players aren't. It sounds like this person doesn't fit anywhere into D&D unless they're playing one-on-one or by themselves, which is fine. but again, I don't understand if you knew that they were like that, why you would invite them into the
Well,
game in the
I
first
assume
place.
because the post does specifically say that they've been part of a gaming group for about 6 or 7 years, where
Yeah.
4 of us are still the main group, while 3 or 4 others have come and gone or come and stayed for a year-long campaign.
Yeah.
So
So I wonder
like
if this person is one of the original 4 or just one who's stuck around.
I think yeah, it seems like
But
they
I think my cautionary tale from this is like, think about who, even if they're your friend,
yeah,
it
no.
might not be a good fit.
Oh,
And
and
it's
that
okay.
is the point, and that's the hard thing to get into your mind.
It's
We're like, yeah,
it's
because again,
okay to say, hey, look, I still want to be your friend. I like you as a person. This doesn't work. And if they are your friend, it won't hurt them. Or it will, but it won't ruin your
it
friendship.
shouldn't destroy the
If you guys are
relationship.
actually friends and actually have a good friendship, then removing someone from a game that you play will not ruin your friendship. And if
Or
it does, it means that maybe it wasn't the best friendship to begin with.
or what makes even more sense is that if they really are your friend and you express the issues or
They should
problems
be
that seem to
listening
be
to you.
happening, they should listen and they should be willing to adjust to make it more fun for everybody. That is the show if they're really your friend. Like, we won't even say like they're really your friend if they could be kicked from the game. What really is the case is if it's like, hey, here's the thing. If you talk to them about this, you address the issues or problems, and you do it in a perfectly fair, reasonable. If they're really your friend, they will either be like, okay, you know what? I'm sorry. You're right. I'm gonna do my best to kind of shift and change my behavior, my pattern, my mannerisms. I'm gonna try to calm down a bit. It's like great.
Yeah.
And if you see that change, that shift, fantastic. Or if you tell them that and like, hey, we kind of having an issues or problem with this style of play, like, and then your friend is like, okay, you know what? That's okay. Like I like to play that way myself, but if that doesn't really jive with you guys, it's all right. I can dip out. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's all it has to be. Like that shows whether or not you're actually real friends. If your friend is literally going to be butthurt about the fact that like, oh, nobody is catering to how they want to play this game. Oh, they're not the main character, they're not the leader, they're not the star of the show. Then as Sam said, it might even be an indicator. And it's ironic that again, such a seemingly small, insignificant, simplistic thing such as D&D seems to be such a not infallible, but seems to be such a constant reoccurring element that allows a person or people to really be able to like test the true fabric or extent of relationships.
Yeah.
Because what people seem to kind of forget or not realize about D&D is interestingly enough, one of the best ways of getting people to show you who they really kind of are. Like
Yeah. It's a weird one.
the psychological aspect component of it is that again, D&D or any tabletop RPG for that matter, it is the appeal of it is the fact that you get to literally project your imagination into, I guess an isolated kind of biome or zone to then start making you can start to make your dreams, fantasies reality.
Yeah.
Or at least a reality, that reality.
It's the same way you tell if someone's a decent DM or not, or like if they're a good storyteller. You can tell based on how they write things, based on how they use a backstory, based on how they look at things. And it's interesting because what speaks to me here is the whole friends don't dump on friends. There's a difference between calling someone out for something and actually being an ass and like shitting on your friends
there's
like
a
that.
difference between ribbing, like playful, fun ribbing. Like again, when I call Sam, a power gaming rules lawyer, whatever. It's like
he means that though. No.
Yeah, I mean it for sure, but it's all in good fun though, because I'm also a bit of a power gaming rules lawyer, or at least I could be considered as such. But I'm also, but when you are really friends, people should know there is a straight difference to how you are projecting those words and those things you're saying.
Yeah.
As opposed to again yelling or again when he literally says like always acting so superior. That sentence right there speaks volumes of how they're really feeling. Like when a person says some shit like that, especially out of like an emotional reaction place, a lot of the time it isn't under the same guise of like, and to be fair, they maybe did it out of anger, and that isn't always like the truth. Somebody usually they might just say some stuff, but in this particular situation, it certainly seems like their behavior before that has reinforces that claim that they feel that way.
It
Where
definitely
you're like, you all think that you're better than me. You all think that you're so, and it's like it's clear because it's like you are trying so hard to try and make yourself again better than them.
the center of everything.
And it's like,
I mean,
no, not necessarily. Like again, you know, so it is an
a very like
unfortunate but a very important lesson to have and to learn is that just because you are friends, just because you're family, just because it might be your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, partner, your partner even.
Yeah.
Just because you love and care about this person doesn't necessarily mean that you will be able to engage in the same hobbies or activities with them.
No.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I honestly like I thought about what would happen if I took my girlfriend and put her in a D&D game, and it's honestly
oh my god, can you imagine? Can you imagine?
It would be terrible.
She would just, oh my god.
It would be so bad. Adam.
She would be like Bart Simpson's Avatar in that freaking world. Oh my god.
It would be terrible. And like, is it because she wouldn't? If I could convince her to give it a shot, I think she would genuinely try.
I think she would. No,
she has said she has absolutely zero interest in D&D, and when I talk about it, her eyes glaze over.
Yeah, like literally.
Which is fine because it's the same way I feel when she talks about fashion and makeup. I could not give a fuck. She'll like show me a video of like runway models, and I'm like, they need to eat, and then I just turn around and go back to do my own thing. So I get it. I get having something that you genuinely have no interest in.
That's fair. That's fair.
Me imagining putting someone like her in a D&D campaign, like that's where that comes. You don't have to do.
No.
I mean, that's the thing. Include people in this that maybe shouldn't be doing it.
If your friends, and again, we at the Arcane Archive here, we're always advocating for if your friends or loved ones or partners are showing genuine interest in it, you know, they're like, hey, this does look interesting. I'd like to give this a try. Like, absolutely, you shouldn't necessarily be discouraged from giving it a try because there are plenty of other instances where your best friend, your partner, your family, when you guys play together, it's some of the best moments and experiences ever. And it can even bring you even closer as people together like that. And so it's certainly not something to always, you know, it's certainly not a rule of thumb to be like, oh, you should never play with your partner. You should never play with your friends. You should never play with your family. Like, it's like, no,
that's not true.
No.
In fact, doing things you love with the people you love makes both things better.
If you guys are really able to connect in this way, that's the thing. But it's important just to, again, be aware that just because you might love and care about each other in this particular capacity, in this way, or in this area, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be compatible in every situation or instance. And that is okay. If you guys are truly, if the relationship is truly a real connection and a relationship worth keeping, it not being compatible in this particular area should not and will not destroy the relationship. And it can be okay to be like, hey, this maybe just isn't really our thing together. Like, you know, if you want to do it a different way, you can. Like, we can't really necessarily do this thing together. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to the next story. We're going to go ahead and go. This one is also a pretty interesting one. I think that everybody might like. I know I've had some experience with this. I think you might have as well, Sammy. The post is, player goes rules lawyer. I snapped. Am I the asshole here? So, OP says, so this happened somewhat recently as of typing this post. I am a new GM running my first ever campaign. The player we will call rules lawyer for the story is an experienced GM and has claimed to have ran many games for many years. See, I'll even right there. It's difficult because there are people who can claim to be like so-called veterans who they'll lie out their ass about actually like their so-called concept of running a game is like they ran like, you know, a couple of one shots maybe or something multiple times, you know, over, I don't even know, but like we'll continue. We'll continue. There are two other players, but Bard is the only relevant one for this story. Might have a lot of mechanics mentioned, as this is a rules lawyer problem, or maybe I am the problem. The main antagonists of my campaign are 7 demon lords based around the 7 deadly sins, reflected by their personalities and monster sheets. They have fought them multiple times and are very aware of what they can do. There are, however, certain conditions that must be met for the demon lords to be truly taken out permanently. They have permanently taken out 2 so far, with rules lawyer being the one to figure out how to meet those conditions. Oftentimes, however, doing it in a way I did not intend that it should be, but he saw mechanical flaws in my wording and used it against me. I let it be at that time. One day, however, they were focusing on the demon lord of lust. We will call her BBEG for this story. They find out that BBEG is a succubus. What a surprise. They find out that BBEG can only be taken out if there's no one currently charmed by her. If a single source of damage drops her to 0 HP, a creature she has charmed will instead take that damage. Her charm lasts indefinitely and can charm up to 5 people total, equaling her charisma modifier. The BBEG reveals to the party that she has charmed 5 NPCs that they know and care about, making this particular confrontation very tricky. She also revealed to them that she has sent 4 of 5 of them to 5 different regions, making it near impossible to find and uncharm them with either Greater Restoration or Dispel Evil or whatever else all at once without letting the BBEG simply charm another person as soon as someone gets uncharmed. Bard jokingly attempts to charm the BBG, saying she will outlust lust, to which I reveal that the embodiment of lust is immune to charm, to which the Bond responds, well, that's expected, I guess. This will be important later. So I end the session in a cliffhanger. Rules lawyer suddenly exclaims triumphantly he figured it out, and that we will all be blown away by his plan on how lust will be killed without harming the people she has charmed. All week, he keeps hyping up his master plan, claiming that the DM did not think this through. Finally comes next session, and Rules Lawyer, super hyped and all, says that he is always the one to figure it out. His plan? He's going to cast Dominate Person.
If you're immune to charm, you're immune to dominate person.
You cannot, it's literally in the spell's description itself that it charms you. His whole argument is that he can command the BBEG to apparently drown themselves. I'm like, what? He says the BBEG's ability only concerns HP and damage. Suffocation, however, is a timer thing that has something to do with their con score. Honestly, I don't really get it, but this is his argument. So, in this particular instance, Rules Lawyer is technically correct in that in the rules of D&D 5e, if a person is currently submerged underwater and do not have the ability to breathe, they can essentially hold their breath for a number of, I believe, is it rounds or minutes? I think it's minutes. It's minutes equaling their Constitution modifier. After they run out of those minutes, or if for whatever reason they like are attacked and they like lose air, for instance, they will then be able to last a number of rounds, I think equal to their charisma or their Constitution modifier before they start to officially start to drown. So technically speaking, they are not incorrect in that there is no actual damage that is done. Like you're essentially, once you have started to drown, you drop to 0 HP immediately and fall unconscious. But continuing on, he says he casts it. In my mind, I'm like, shit, here we go again. Insert Grand Theft Auto San Andreas meme. Shit, here we go again. I remind him that, and no, that was my insert, not the post, just as a heads up. I'm claiming that. I remind him that she's immune to charm, as seen with the Bard's attempt at charm last time. If he'd like, he can take it back and not cast it. Charm immunity means no dominate person. He, however, is not having it. From the top of my head, this is how the conversation went. Rules lawyer. Succubus are not immune to charm. Me. I homebrewed her stats. Rules lawyer. New DMs shouldn't be homebrewing stuff, especially for high-level games. It's about rewarding your players. It's not all about what the rules say. Me. Fine, you cast it. I roll in front of everyone. Bam, she saves anyway. Bard. Silvery barbs. Me. Rolls in front of everyone again. Still saves. Save twice now. Let's move on, please. Now, Rules Lawyer has tried and succeeded pulling off shenanigans like this before. I, being a new DM, just assumed he knew better and went along with his arguments on how things should work. As the campaign goes on, however, I slowly start to realize Rules Lawyer is misinterpreting many things or is just straight up wrong about them. So I cannot just let it be this time. Plus, another player, Bard, did not get past the BBEG's charm immunity, so it would be unfair to let it work for Rules Lawyer. Rules Lawyer decides to keep attacking BBEG, prompting her ability to make her charmed targets take the damage instead, putting NPCs they like at risk. Bard is like, yo, WTF. He just keeps saying things like, we're being railroaded. This is what a railroad looks like, you guys. And it's what the GM wants us to do. No other solution. He also says stuff under his breath the whole time like, new DM plus homebrew equals mess. I tried to ignore it, but everybody has their limits. So I ask him, is there an effing problem here, man? He then erupts in reply, and I am paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly every word he said in this long rant, but it goes something along the lines of, Succubus aren't supposed to even be immune to charm. I'm being punished for thinking outside the box. I figured out how to solve your stupid boss fight in a different way than you planned, but of course, being inexperienced, you chose your dumb plans over player agency. Now, my response probably wasn't the best, but I was pissed. So I went off and said, I'm the effing DM. What I say goes. And I say the session is over and you're booted. He stormed out after he throws a bunch of insults at me in my game. And honestly, it hurt. The following few days, he tried to start his own campaign and recruit my remaining 2 players. None of them joined. And the fact that none of them joined and continue to play in my game puts a smile on my face. So I ask you, Redditors, am I the a-hole? Are we both a-holes? I know for sure I did not handle the situation very well here. End post. So real quick, let's just go ahead and let's see what the aspiring, sophisticated minds of Reddit have to say about this post. Top voted comment. Number 1, the literal wording of dominate person is succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be charmed. If the BBEG is immune to being charmed, anything that would impose the charm condition cannot work. Number 2, dominate person specifies a humanoid as the target, and succubi are fiends. Number 3, by his own rules, she's still saved against it. It is not your fault he cannot read. Yeah, that, in essence, absolutely sums it up quite perfectly. This individual, and this is, again, like, I also have personal experience. Exactly. I think I told you guys a little bit about this, the Cringe campaign that I was a part of. This guy sounds exactly the same as the GM in my experience, where he is consistently pretending and trying to claim some kind of actual authority or ability or supremacy of knowledge and experience in this game, when in fact they clearly have almost less than none, really. Or they are just deliberately trying to twist and manipulate and contort every aspect they can and take full advantage of a brand new GM to suit the situation to their purposes and desires only.
Yeah, this guy gives rules lawyers a bad name.
Yeah.
By literally just not even knowing.
He doesn't even know the actual rules of it. He's not even a real rules lawyer. No. Not at all. He, again, and that's the issue being is a lot of the time, this is, again, for any new players, obviously even veterans, like, especially if you have veterans in a game, if you guys are noticing that a GM or even another player is actively like misinterpreting, misreading, or even trying to just straight up cheat, say something. Especially if the GM is brand new and they're having an issue they don't know, like say something. Don't just sit passively and be like, oh well, if the GM agree, like no, because the GM again, if the GM is new, the least you should do is at least put out like, just as a heads up, like from my experience and from what I've read, like this is how the rules are actually interpreted. Like this is what they say. Again, you don't have to be a jerk about it. And at the end of the day, the GM is the one that makes the ultimate choice at the end of it all. But
Yeah.
you can put forward again the fact that like, hey, just as a heads up, this is my like if that player is saying something like, I don't know if we're going to play it that way, but technically speaking, rules as written, this is normally how it's done in more vanilla versions of D&D. Like this is how the rules technically interpret it, or rather, this is how most people technically interpret it from the rules, or maybe even how it's
Yeah.
intended to be interpreted. If we want to do it a different way, that's perfectly fine. We can just set that as the precedent now, but this is technically how it's actually like written out in that
And
way.
also that's why I always tell people, like, if you have a problem with how something's being ruled, if you can avoid making a scene in the middle of a
In the
session
middle of
and
a
then
game,
maybe
yeah.
talk to them outside of the game, you're way more likely to get someone who is responsive and open to conversation as opposed to someone who might be defensive. Um, I had to learn that the hard way. I was definitely when I first started playing, I was definitely like, well, this is how we've run it before. This is the rule. Like it with the moment someone does it different, I'm going to be like, wait a minute, that's not how this works. And I didn't hesitate to call it out in the middle of a game. That's not really the best way to go.
I would say that should only be the last
There
resort. If like
and there
if you're in a game and things are like happening consistently, where like shit's just being kind of crazy or weird, or where it's just like, oh, you're doing
wait, yeah, it's like
all this stuff, it keeps happening in the session. At that point, especially if it's impacting like your fun, I would then make, because again, I don't have a problem with talking about it in the game, or at least bringing it up in a session, so long as again you're not being like accusatory about it. Like again, if you're literally just asking a question to be like, oh, is this how we're planning on doing it, like just again for confirmation for yourself, to basically be like, this is how I've normally seen it done, or this is how I've done it before in the past. If we're doing it now, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm my expectations and what we're, again, whatever the precedent is, that we're just all aware and on the same page about it, rather than it just being like a thing that consistently keeps happening in the session. You're just like, wait, what? That's weird. Like that. What should I be expecting now at this point? But I also do agree with Sam. It's like if it's like a huge thing, if it's a thing you really have a big problem with, often it's probably not best to address it straight up in game in the middle of a session. I'll do that shit if some shit's like really effed up to me. Like it was like some really messed up stuff. Like again, the GM just saying that everybody takes like 150 points of damage without any ability to make a save for no reason at all. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not just doing that. Sorry. I will 100% disrupt this whole shit because that shit is ridiculous. I'm not just going along with that. All right. Absolutely not. But if it is some stuff like this where it's just like, oh, well, hey, I want to cast this spell and da 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 da, like, well, they're immune. Because again, it is the GM's prerogative. I like this thing where it's like, yeah, he homebrewed this creature. Homebrew is a good thing. It is okay to do it. In fact, I actively encourage it all the time. I love good homebrew. Phenomenal thing, bro. It's okay to homebrew creatures, monsters, enemies, some classes or other thing, whatever. That's okay, as long as it's not, ridiculous, redonkulous, crazy out the wazoo, like unfair. But to me, it doesn't seem like this particular encounter was unfair. It's just the GM, again, hey, the succubus is immune to charm because they are literally like the embodiment of charisma. They aren't just a normal succubus. They are literally the demon lord of lust. Like,
yeah, like not my thing is like this dude just obviously wants to do things his way and didn't get it and behaved like a child. And I do, I feel some sympathy for the GM in this scenario of like, a blow up like that where you're just like, I'm done with this. Is I get it. I get it, especially if this was a constant thing. Because I imagine you're just talking about this one instance. But if he's like this with this, he was probably like that all the time.
He
And it
has said
drove
that
you
this is not
insane.
an uncommon thing.
Yeah, it drove you to a breaking point, and you're not an asshole. I think you're a better person for being willing to apologize about it and be like, admit that,
Well,
you know,
to ask, yeah, and
I shouldn't have acted that way. You know that you shouldn't have acted that way, but I understand why you did, because
yeah,
that's
you are
not.
not unjustified, even
No.
though it was not. It is just true. It's not the best way to react like that necessarily, but you are 100% not unjustified at all. Like, in fact, I would say you are justified with how this guy was acting, behaving, and treating you. Like, especially if he's throwing insults, he's doing all this stuff, and you clearly, you just wanted to run a fun game. You were a brand new GM, and he clearly was taking advantage of you, and that's not okay. So you are absolutely not the a-hole in my book in this. You reacted, you defended it, and you responded accordingly in almost every way, shape, or form. Even if the last part maybe wasn't the best way to handle it, and honestly, it also wasn't the worst way to handle it either. I'll tell you that. Like, it wasn't the worst way either. It is unfortunate, man. Again, these kind of scenarios are not uncommon either, you guys. But again, I want to also preface this though by saying, like, rules lawyers are not inherently bad, right? Just like how so-called, power gamers aren't necessarily bad. It's like how you choose, just like with anything, how you choose to utilize that is what makes it good or bad, essentially. You can be a great power gamer. You can be a great rules lawyer. If, again, you understand at the end of the day, you are trying to use your knowledge, your power, your abilities for the combined constructive entertainment, joy, and pleasure of the table at large. It's not about trying to make yourself the best, the strongest, or whatever. It's about trying to make the overall game more engaging, more fun, more interesting, all of that, memorable. All right. I would say with that, we're going to do one more, and then we're going to go ahead and get out of here for the day, I think. We're going to move on to the last story of the day. This is it's a bit of a shorter one. No worries. I'll fine with that. Player constantly hijacks the game and sabotages the party. Again, another pretty common kind of trope here, but important to discuss, talk about, and get a little bit more personal, experiences and situations so you can better recognize maybe when this is something that's like truly a lost cause, or maybe something a little bit more intentional, or, maybe just a person who's particularly excited about playing. So basically, I'm in the game and I've been a part of for a little over a year now, and it has been getting a lot of new people recently. A party of 5 quickly became a party of 9. And most of which have not played D&D ever. Our party are essentially wanted men and women that are more likely to be taken out on site rather than imprisoned if people found out who we are. One new player, who I'll refer to as Russell, his character, being a level 5 fighter, has been consistently problematic in terms of taking tons of time to talk to NPCs and intentionally sabotaging and outing the party as criminals to pretty much anybody he talks to, and then blaming it on the fact that he has low intelligence. This is a not so uncommon occurrence. We'll keep going real quick. We'll talk about it a little bit further at the end. He spent over an hour aggressively interrogating a shop owner regarding her merchandise, trying to convince her that he deserves the most powerful weapons they had for free. My character, a level 7 rogue, has pretty much had to babysit and lie for him all the time, so we don't all end up being executed in each town we visit. Whenever someone in our party speaks with an NPC, Russell insists he be a part of the conversation solely to give hints to the NPC that we are wanted. Our GM finds this whole thing hilarious, However, I am constantly frustrated that he seems to exist for the sole purpose of making everybody's lives more difficult. And when confronted about this, Russell, out of character, says, "You're just mad because I'm more into my character's lore than any one of you." And his character proceeds to accuse my character of being a pedanta for no reason. And Russell then pretty much shuts down for the rest of the session. I'm not totally sure how the other players feel about his attitude and actions, but a few people were noticeably uncomfortable with the pedantifizzle comment, but 2 players had leaned into it as a joke both in-game and outside of it. I plan to talk to my DM about it, but don't want to appear whiny or too serious. Literally, as I type this, the session has ended an hour ago. TLDR, new player talks to every NPC for way too long and tries to unintentionally, in quotation marks, out the party as criminals, and when confronted, he gets mad and insults my character in game. Woo! Yeah, this is a thing right here. So as we have kind of said so many times throughout the lifespan of this channel, don't actively, intentionally try to sabotage and screw over everyone else's experience of the game. That's not, I mean, even okay. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. All right. Let me tell you something. All right. I can understand there are times, sometimes, if you do it very carefully, and you have to be a very experienced, a very open, a very communicative, and you should ideally also be very close with your party members to this point, or your other players, to bring in a character that at least, and again, always for a limited time, is perhaps an active detriment to the party in some way, right? You can bring in a character. This individual, Russell, he is utilizing the fact that, oh, his fighter has low intelligence, and therefore that justifies the fact that he is such an idiot that he cannot help but screw over the party and actively volunteer all of the party's, secrets, personal things, all that stuff, all the time, to people who, even up to this point, just from experience, he should probably know, hey, don't do that. Especially if his party has been actively telling him, hey, don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't tell people this thing. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's like, how did this guy survive up to that point then? How did Russell survive to the point where he came to this party if he's apparently a wanted criminal? How has he not already been captured before he even met up with the party if he's that stupid and incapable of keeping personal shit or that aspect on the down low?
Well, that's why I love this comment, because it ties in, because this is chaotic stupid at its best.
At its absolute best. Like,
if all he cares about is doing bits, if all he cares about is doing bits at the expense of the party, he's not really role playing, because he's lost one of the basic tenets of being alive: self-preservation.
That's exactly.
If his character can't learn it all or retain that knowledge, then his character is a liability. If everyone prefers a game where japes outweigh the reality of the situation, and you do not, you may just be at the wrong table, and 9 sounds like a crazy amount to me anyways. But that's kind of like, we've talked about role-playing before. You can role-play a character as being stupid, or not super wise, or not super charismatic.
That's okay.
All things, you can do that. But the reality is that the character doesn't want to die. So self-preservation is something that they would know. They would know, it doesn't matter how dumb you are, constantly outing yourself as a criminal to every person you meet doesn't make sense. There is the possibility, and to be fair, like, I could see it if you're like a barbarian who joined a party who is full of like criminals, and you weren't originally a criminal, and so you might accidentally let it slip. with the wrong person there. But
I
that's
mean,
this that's
well,
different
but
than what
only
this
if you
is, because
also
this
trust them. Like only
yeah,
only
yeah,
if
yeah.
you one, you actually trust them. Two, like I said before, it's okay if your character is again an active detriment to the party for a limited time.
Yeah,
Like
it's
if
gotta be something very limited. This is if it's all the time, then this dude is just doing it to do it,
he's
and he
just doing
shouldn't,
it to screw with everybody. Here's the
which
thing.
doesn't
Even if your
that's not
character is
fun.
stupid, you have to let your character's affection and care for your party overpower the character's stupidity to drag them into shit. Okay? That is the difference. Okay? You can be dumb, that's fine. You want to make a dumb character, that's fine. But even the dumbest character, make them like Goofy, right? Goofy is super dumb, super goofy, but he also ironically has incredible awareness and insight at the most opportune of times or at the most important times. On
Yeah.
top of the fact that despite the fact maybe he might say some off the cuff stuff or he might let certain things slip, he also at least is aware that hey, this is something maybe that I shouldn't say to like, about my friends or whatever. If my friends don't like this, even if I don't understand why they don't like it, I'm not going to say something that's going to inadvertently hurt them because I care about my friends, even if
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. There's a
It's not
difference.
this dude's just screwing around to screw
He's just
around,
being an
which
asshole. He's just being a douche canoe because he can be. He's doing the whole stupid song and dance. Like, it's just what my character would do.
yeah,
No,
it's
it
not
isn't.
helpful. And
No, it
it's
isn't.
not even fun. Like I never understood people like that because it's not even a fun way to play the game.
Well, it is to him
Um
because he's a troll. It's fun to see him. It's fun to see like, oh, I'm screwing things up for my party. Like it's fun to see everybody get all angry. That's what a troll is. He is not having fun. His life is probably shitty or messed up in some way, shape, or form, and he gets his rocks off by actively sabotaging other people's experiences too to bring it down to his level. That's what this sounds
is
like to me.
yeah, and it's
And
unfortunate because it's like this isn't like a, oh, we can keep him in here and he's gonna change. This is definitely a
no,
get rid of this person
no, no, no,
scenario.
no. I mean, because he's also not even one of the original party members. He
I
was
don't
somebody
know.
that came in after the fact because again, he's level 5. The original party members are level 7 now. And he actively chose, apparently, to go down to level 5 because he's like, well, my character isn't as experienced as the rest of you guys. And it's like, okay, but evidently you're still a criminal. You
Yeah,
still did
yeah,
something.
I
You
don't have
still know about it.
yeah.
How would you not be in jail or executed at this point if your
Yeah, that's
character
the
was
other,
this stupid before meeting them?
like, make me believe that this person could at least be partially successful by
Or
themselves.
at least survivable.
Oh,
Like you can't have a character that is actively like is actively a complete like it's just I hate people like I get it. I get it. Some people do want to make that character who's just like the dumbest, idiotic, most whatever, and then by some miracle of miracles has a guardian god or angel or something that has somehow kept them from Darwinism taking, its rightful soul sacrifice from this person, right? Like, because by all standards of measurement, if this person is truly that dumb, there's almost no way, shape, or form that they should have survived up to this point in a world like this. To be fair, there are people in real life that are like that, though.
yeah, like this isn't
It's
this.
true.
I
It's
think the
not
worst.
it's not uncommon, but the issue here, the prime difference is you have direct control over that.
Yeah, you
You
literally.
can you can make them not like that. They don't have to be like that. Stop choosing that. People who keep making, oh, this is what my character would do, and they do it wrong. It's like, no,
It's
no.
infuriating. I don't what
You
I
you are choosing it. That's not what your character would do.
yeah.
You are making your character do that.
What bothers me more than anything is like how much a mirror to real life D&D can be sometimes in its terms of like the kind of people you interact with.
Yup.
This like most likely this person's like that in all aspects of what they do, and it's not, this isn't like a simple, oh well, if we just ask him to stop he'll stop, because even if you get him to stop for a couple sessions, the moment you do anything to his character it's just going to keep doing it again.
Yup.
You already have too many people at the table, you might as well kick him out. I saw a couple of suggestions of like,
Yeah, to do
you know,
just that.
of talk to the DM, talk to the other players separately. my thing is, if you want to stay with this group, I would talk to the DM and the other.
Yeah,
Well, I talked to a couple of the other players, see what they
I
feel.
I would see how
And
they feel about it.
if they feel similar to you, that's good. If you then talk to the DM and the DM just doesn't agree with you, leave the table. Because the reality is that if you talk to the other people in the DM and they agree with you, and there's a couple of them that don't, you could just take all of those people out. So
If it's
anyone who doesn't have a problem with what he's
or
doing or is actively encouraging it, get them out of there because your table should be smaller anyway. 9 people is
Well,
way
here's what
too
I'll
many.
say: if they're not actively encouraging it, if they don't see that there's a problem, fine, whatever. If they're not actively engaging or encouraging it, you don't have to kick them out. That's fine. They're just taking a so-called neutral stance. Fine, that's perfectly fine. If they're encouraging it or even joining him in it, yeah, they should probably leave too. Like that's. And
Yeah.
again, thing being is like apparently somebody just asked us here. He's like, that is odd. I would guess your DM is just very new. And the OP goes like, he's just extremely lenient and maybe a little too nice. He's been DMing for over 5 years now, apparently. And he doesn't want to deem anybody as problematic because he just wants everybody that wants to be a part of his world to be a part of it. Now, here's the issue with that, right? This guy, he doesn't want to be a part of the world. He's actively trying to sabotage it, in fact. If he did, then he wouldn't have his character literally start screwing everything up. The GM, in this instance, is being a wuss, in my opinion. It makes me angry. Like I'm like, GM, like I get it. You want like if most of your players, you have 9 players right now. That in and of itself is not a great look. Like trust me, I've been there. I've literally been a part of that. It's not a great scenario for the most part, most of the time. Okay? You can keep literally the 4 original players and you have a perfectly great party for that. You don't have to put up with all this other crap. To me, it just seems like the GM is just afraid of confrontation. And I get that. Confrontation can be uncomfortable and even scary at times. But it's going to be even more uncomfortable and messed up if you just keep letting this dude ruin your game and shit all over your game. Like,
Yeah. I'm reading more. There's like a big thread of comments.
yeah,
It doesn't sound. This dude needs to leave.
he
Because he
needs
talked
to
to
get
the
the hell
DM
out.
he talked to the DM and the DM was like, well, he was playing his character. I love the oh yeah, no, it's not good.
Nah, man. He,
I think the GM is genuinely inexperienced. Obviously it's a little over a year, but I don't know.
well,
The
again,
GM doesn't seem to be knowing. They don't know how to deal with people
if the
because
GM really has a freaking DM for 5 years, how do they
that's
not
well,
understand?
we've talked about this, Adam.
I know,
You've
but
played
it's
with many people who claim to have GM'd for a long period of time, and then you watch them actually play, and you're like, you must have been GMing for cardboard cutouts of other human beings because there's no way in hell anyone sat through this before.
running simulations or some stupid shit like
I mean,
that
which
doesn't
is if
count.
that's what you like, go play fucking City Skylines. Why are you playing D&D? But the reality is, no, this person needs to leave. The more I read these comments, the more angry I get, and I don't want to keep
No,
getting angry.
he's like this whole thing like this again. Nothing pisses me off more than an intentional like sabotage or
Sure, yeah,
saboteur.
he's gonna
Like
get a full party of just idiots. That's what
he
this
he.
DM wants. I don't know.
He's just like this dude is just actively screwing and trying to mess with everybody else's experience, and it's just like what the. And again, the GM is like, how are you just taking a passive backseat? This is your game. This is your world. Aren't you feeling angry? Aren't you feeling upset about this? Like, bro, this
He's basically making a mockery.
straight up. He is straight up disrespect. He is literally pissing and shitting all over your so-called world that you just want people to be a part of and enjoy. How oh my god. A little tip again for all you new GMs out there, okay? Do not, and I get it. If you have a hard time getting people or finding players, and you finally have the opportunity to run this world that you've been working on for maybe years or whatever, I understand. I really do. But I implore you, I am begging you, do not be afraid to stand up for yourself. Because again, your world that you worked on for all that time, it deserves respect. Doesn't don't bring in a bunch of disrespectful, inconsiderate douche canoes who are gonna just shit all over it.
Yeah, it's
That is not the answer. No D&D is better than bad D&D.
yeah. This is just this is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. This dude just needs to not like need to kick him out immediately. All
Yeah,
right.
that's no. Just leave. Your DM's not. It's not good.
Get the hell out. Get the
So,
hell out of there. Like that in essence we'll do just one tiny little last blurb, maybe just kind of wash the taste out of our mouth a little bit of that last one. I hate the deck of many things. In today's game alone, due to the deck of many things, my neutral good Azamar priest became neutral evil, our druid turned into an eagle and is forced to play with an eagle character sheet instead of his, and cannot be disenchanted until he takes damage, and the bard and warrior won 1 citadel for 2, and they must kill all the demons there and then fight a duel for this citadel. This is why I hate the deck of many things. We'll probably actually have to do a bit of a video on the deck of many things at one point too, because yeah, that
probably.
I think we talked a little bit about it in like the items, the artifacts and stuff episode before, but it's they just released a new book, literally in the same style or in essence in honor of the deck of many things, so called the Book of Many Things. So we might have to revisit it because they obviously expanded exponentially now on that thing, which is even crazier. Hey, but at least they gave some new, more positive benefits now to it. Like they switched it to make it like, hey, it's more likely you'll get something good rather than so much of it probably being horrible. All right, y'all. But that in essence, thank you guys so much for tuning in. That's all that I think we have for you guys today. We appreciate you coming in and sticking around with us for today's segment of Cautionary Chronicles here at the Arcane Archive. We hope that you guys learned a little bit of something. We hope you guys laughed a bit, maybe cried a bit, share in our mutual group trauma bonding and cringe bonding sesh as we love it. We're gonna be bringing more of these back to you guys for certain as well.
Yeah, we can't do too many in a row in the same day because it'll make. I feel icky. Like I feel
Yeah.
physically icky. You'll if we keep doing these, you'll learn very quickly that I get very angry at this.
Yeah,
Because
just I'm
one, because the guy who blew up in the third one that we did, that's me. That would be me as a person. Because the moment someone messes with something that I care about, I get very angry very quickly. And so
yeah, I feel
I'm
ya.
reading these. I'm sitting here like, oh, if this happened, I would
Yeah.
screaming.
It's just like but again,
So
we
it's
do
still
appreciate
it's good fun though.
it
Hopefully,
is
hopefully these people get out of these terrible situations and figure out
seriously, like
what to do with
my heart
themselves.
goes out to them. I really do hope that they are no longer in these situations and have found some kind of support system to help them with that, or they've moved on at this point because they don't deserve it. None of you guys deserve it. No, this is not something that you have to
This
deal
isn't what D&D's supposed
It's
to be.
not what D&D isn't. It's not what D&D even is. I don't know what they're
Yeah.
doing, what he's doing, but it ain't D&D.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you all again so very much. If you stuck with us this long, please be sure again to like and comment on the video if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please do share with anybody you think might like it. We would absolutely 100% love and appreciate it. Again, we got other things coming out. We hope you guys enjoy our usual scheduled programming for our subclass discussion, as well as our deep dives into like the demons and devils episodes. We had some fun with that one. I think that just came out recently as well. But as always, appreciate y'all. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time when we dive back down into the archive.
See you guys.
Bye.